It was a cold morning in Madison, Wisconsin, the kind that bites through your coat no matter how thick it is. Snow lay heavy on the rooftops, and the air smelled like frozen quiet. Emily Parker sat at the small wooden table by the kitchen window, sipping coffee that had gone lukewarm. Her husband, Jason, hadn't spoken to her in 3 days. She wasn't sure when silence had become the main sound in their home. Maybe it was after she crossed 300 pounds. Maybe it was before that, when he stopped looking at her with warmth and started seeing her as something he wanted to fix. "Jason," she said softly, "are you coming to breakfast?" He didn't answer. He just stood there by the door, phone in his hand, coat half on. "I already ate," he muttered. Emily tried to smile. "With who?" she asked, even though she didn't want to know. Jason turned around, and the look in his eyes told her the truth before his words did. "With Lily," he said flatly. "Your sister needed to talk. She listens, you know. She actually cares." The words hit her harder than any slap. "Lily, my sister?" He shrugged. "You're always tired, Emily. You don't even try anymore. I can't live like this, watching you waste away your health while you complain about your weight but never do anything about it." Tears burned her eyes. "Jason, I've been trying. You know that. I've tried every diet." "Trying isn't enough," he snapped. "You've had years. Look at yourself. You're 320 pounds. You can barely walk up the stairs without losing your breath. You've lost control of your life, your health, your values. I need someone who doesn't drain me." Emily swallowed the pain. "And that someone is my sister?" Jason didn't respond. He opened the door, grabbed his car keys, and left. The sound of the engine fading into the distance left her in silence, so deep it felt like the walls were collapsing. That night, she found out through a friend's message that Jason and Lily had been seen together at a restaurant in downtown Madison. Hand in hand. Laughing. Her own sister, the one who used to borrow her clothes and cry on her shoulder after breakups, had taken her husband. Emily didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just sat there, staring at her reflection in the dark window. Her face was round, her eyes small from years of tears, her skin pale from stress. But the worst part wasn't her body. It was the way she'd stopped believing she was worth love, respect, or even her own time. For weeks, she stayed locked inside. The phone kept ringing, her mother kept calling, but Emily ignored everyone. Bills piled up, the fridge emptied, and the house grew colder. One morning, as she stared at her empty wallet, she whispered to herself, "I've lost everything. My money, my health, my marriage, even my own sister." She thought about ending it all. But something inside her, something small, maybe just a spark, refused to die. That spark came alive one evening when she turned on the TV. A commercial flashed across the screen. A woman, once overweight, was running through a park, smiling, her arms strong and toned. The voice said, "Real change isn't about appearance. It's about reclaiming your values, your power, your prosperity." Emily sat up. For the first time in months, she felt something deep in her chest. It wasn't hope, not yet. It was anger. Quiet, clean, focused anger. That night, she stood in front of the mirror and said out loud, "They took everything from me, but they won't take who I am." The next morning, she walked to the local gym. Her legs hurt, her chest burned, but she didn't stop. The trainer looked skeptical when she said she wanted to lose 120 pounds. He asked, "Are you sure you can handle that?" Emily smiled weakly. "No," she said, "but I'm going to do it anyway." Outside, the snow had started falling again. The city looked peaceful, unaware that something powerful had just begun. Emily Parker was done being the woman people pitied. She didn't know it yet, but the woman Jason had mocked for losing control was about to show the world what real control and real wealth of spirit looked like. And in time, Madison would whisper her name with awe. The first few weeks at the gym were brutal. Emily's legs trembled every time she climbed the stairs, and her arms ached just from holding the treadmill rails. The mirrors on the walls felt like cruel judges, reflecting every inch of the 320 pounds she carried. People tried not to stare, but she could feel their eyes, pity from some, mockery from others. One morning, while tying her sneakers, she overheard two young women whispering near the locker room. "Isn't that Jason Parker's wife?" one said. "Well, ex-wife now, right?" The other giggled. "Yeah, heard he's with her sister. I mean, can you blame him? Look at her." Emily's face flushed, her chest tightening. But she didn't walk away this time. She looked straight at them and said, calm but fierce, "You're right, look at me. I'm not done yet." They went silent, surprised by the strength in her voice. Emily turned and walked toward the treadmill. That moment became her fuel. Each day after that, she pushed harder. 10 minutes became 20. A slow walk turned into a jog. Sweat soaked her shirt, and pain crawled through her muscles. But she kept going. She thought about every cruel word Jason had said, every time Lily laughed at her size, and she turned it into motion. The trainer, Mark, began to notice. "You've got fire, Emily," he said one morning. "Most people quit by now." She smiled through her exhaustion. "I've already quit too many things, not this time." Months passed. Her clothes started to hang loose. By the end of spring, she was down 60 pounds. The number on the scale read 260. But more than the weight, it was her spirit that felt lighter. One Sunday morning, Emily visited her mother for the first time since the divorce. Her mom gasped the moment she opened the door. "Emily, honey, you look incredible." Emily hugged her tightly. "I feel alive again, Mom, for the first time in years." Her mother smiled, tears in her eyes. "I knew you'd find your way back. You've always had strong values, baby. Your daddy used to say, 'Real wealth isn't money in your pocket. It's strength in your soul.'" Those words stuck with her. Emily realized she'd spent her marriage chasing approval, comfort, and the illusion of love, things that had drained her health and prosperity. Now she was building something different, something money couldn't buy. She started working part-time at a local bakery to pay her bills. It wasn't much, but it gave her routine, purpose, and dignity. She woke up at 5 every morning, baked cinnamon rolls, cleaned the counters, and smiled at strangers who came in for coffee. Some days, the smell of sugar and bread made her stomach twist with temptation, but she stayed strong. The owner, Mrs. Harris, admired her determination. "You've got something special, Emily. You glow," she said one afternoon, handing her a paycheck. "It's not about money, though I hope it helps. It's about finding your prosperity again." Emily nodded. "I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm not where I was." By the end of that year, the scale read 190 pounds. She'd lost 130 pounds total since that winter morning when Jason left. Her skin still bore the marks of her journey, stretch lines, scars, but they no longer embarrassed her. They told her story. People around Madison started to notice. At the bakery, customers whispered her name with admiration. "That's Emily Parker," they'd say, "the woman who changed her life." One evening, while closing up, she looked out the window and saw her reflection in the glass. She barely recognized the woman staring back, stronger, sharper, alive. She whispered to herself, "This is wealth. Not what's in a bank, not what someone says about you, but this feeling of peace inside." As she turned off the lights and stepped outside into the cool Wisconsin night, Emily felt a quiet certainty settle in her heart. The girl who once measured her worth in pounds and pain had learned a new value, one built on strength, not size. And though she didn't know it yet, fate was already preparing the moment when Jason would see her again and realize what he'd thrown away. By the spring of 2012, Madison had come alive again. The snow had melted, the farmers' market had reopened downtown, and laughter filled the streets. Emily Parker was no longer hiding in the shadows. She moved through the city like she belonged there, because she finally did. She now weighed 180 pounds, strong and confident. Every morning she jogged by Lake Mendota, her earbuds in, the sunrise painting the water gold. Her hair, once dull and brittle, now caught the wind. She could feel her health returning, not just in her body, but in her mind. At the bakery, business had grown. Mrs. Harris had even promoted her to assistant manager. Emily managed money, trained new workers, and learned how to run the place with care. For the first time in her life, she wasn't living in fear of losing someone or something. One Saturday morning, while arranging pastries, a familiar voice cut through the hum of the shop. Emily Parker?" She turned slowly. The air froze in her chest. It was Jason. He looked thinner, but not in the healthy way she had become. His face was tired, his eyes restless. Behind him stood Lily, her once vibrant sister, now pale, nervous, and wearing clothes that looked too expensive for comfort, but too tight for confidence. "Jason," Emily said, her voice steady. "Lily." Lily forced a smile. "It's been a while." "2 years," Emily replied, wiping her hands on her apron. "What brings you here?" Jason looked around awkwardly. "We were just passing through. Thought we'd grab coffee." Emily nodded. "Sure, have a seat." She poured their drinks, her hands calm. Inside, though, memories came rushing back. Every insult, every cold night, every cruel laugh. But now she wasn't the same woman who had begged him to stay. She was standing tall, strong, wearing her confidence like armor. As Jason took his first sip, he stared at her. "You look different," he said quietly. Emily smiled. "I should. I've lost 120 pounds. Found my health again. Found my peace." Lily looked down. Jason's eyes darted between them. "That's good. I didn't think I'd make it?" she interrupted. "You were right. I didn't make it as the woman you left. That version of me died the day you walked out." The room fell silent. Even Mrs. Harris, pretending to check receipts, glanced up, sensing the tension. Jason cleared his throat. "Look, Emily, things haven't been easy. Lily and we've hit some rough times. The money ran low. My job's been slow since the economy tanked." Emily folded her arms. "That's tough. But you always said money fixes everything, didn't you?" He winced. "I guess I was wrong." "You were," she said softly. "Because wealth isn't about cash, Jason. It's about values. It's about health. In your heart, in your soul, you can have all the money in the world and still be broke where it matters most." Lily looked like she wanted to vanish. "Emily, I know you hate me. I didn't mean for things to go the way they did." Emily studied her for a moment, then said, "You didn't mean it, but you did it. You took what wasn't yours. You broke something that used to mean everything to me. But here's the funny part. You did me a favor." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "A favor?" Emily nodded. "Yeah, losing you both was the start of my prosperity. You two leaving taught me how strong I really was, how much life I'd wasted trying to fix people who never planned to stay." Jason shifted uncomfortably. "We should go," he muttered. Emily stepped closer, lowering her voice. You know what's funny, Jason? For years you said I was too big to be seen with, too heavy to love. Now look at us. You're the one who's small. He didn't reply. He just looked at her, the woman he'd broken, now radiant, confident, untouchable. As they left the bakery, Mrs. Harris walked over, smiling proudly. Well, she said, that was quite a scene. Emily exhaled slowly. Yeah, it felt like closing a chapter I should have ended long ago. Mrs. Harris chuckled. Honey, you didn't close it. You rewrote it. That night, Emily sat on her porch, the warm air brushing against her skin. She thought about how far she'd come, the pain, the growth, the lessons in love and self-worth. She wasn't rich in money, but she had something far better. She had peace, health, and a life built on real values, the kind of wealth no one could ever steal again. And somewhere deep down, she knew this wasn't the last she'd hear from Jason Parker, because men like him never handle losing to the woman they once underestimated. A few weeks after that tense meeting in the bakery, Emily thought the past had finally gone quiet. She'd gotten used to her peace. Early mornings by the lake, coffee with Mrs. Harris before the doors opened, and quiet nights at home reading on her porch. But peace never stays long when pride is bruised. One afternoon, while she was finishing inventory, Mrs. Harris called from the front, Emily, there's someone asking for you. When she walked out, her heart dropped. It was Jason. Again. But this time he wasn't wearing guilt. He was wearing anger. Can we talk? He asked, his tone sharp. Emily crossed her arms. About what? He lowered his voice. You've been talking about me. People in town say you've been telling lies. Emily blinked. Lies? Jason, I don't even think about you. He stepped closer. You told everyone I left you for your sister. Her jaw tightened. You did. He looked around, embarrassed as a couple of customers glanced their way. You're ruining my reputation, Emily. I could sue you for defamation. She laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. Sue me? For telling the truth? You left me for my own sister, Jason. You humiliated me in front of this whole town. You don't get to play the victim now. He frowned, his voice rising. You think losing a few pounds gives you the right to look down on me? I don't look down on you, she said softly. I just finally see you clearly. Mrs. Harris came up behind her, folding her arms. Sir, you need to leave. Jason pointed at Emily. This isn't over. You think you've found prosperity and peace, but you're nothing without people like me. Emily held his gaze. You're wrong. I used to believe that. I thought my worth came from your approval, from love, from money. But now I understand, real wealth doesn't come from what you own, Jason. It comes from who you are when everything's gone. He turned and stormed out. The bell above the door jingled as it closed behind him. Mrs. Harris shook her head. Lord, that man's ego is heavier than the 300 pounds you lost. Emily smiled weakly. He's desperate. He's losing control. People like him don't handle losing well. That night she went home feeling uneasy. She replayed the scene over and over in her head, his eyes, the way he shook with frustration. He wasn't just embarrassed. He was angry at himself. But he needed someone else to blame. The next morning, she found an envelope taped to her door. Inside was a formal notice, a legal complaint filed by Jason Parker. He was actually suing her for emotional damages and defamation of character. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The words blurred on the page. He's really doing this, she whispered. Her neighbor, Ben, saw her sitting on the porch with the paper trembling in her hands. He was a quiet man in his 40s, a widower who often brought her fresh vegetables from his garden. You okay, Em? He asked gently. She handed him the letter. He's suing me, Ben, my ex-husband. Can you believe it? Ben read the paper and frowned. This is nonsense. He's got no case. This is just him trying to scare you. I don't have money for a lawyer, she said, panic creeping in. He sat beside her. You've come this far, Emily. You didn't survive heartbreak, humiliation, and 320 pounds of pain to give in now. You've got something stronger than money. You've got truth. And that's a kind of wealth he'll never understand. She looked at him, tears forming. You think I can fight this? I don't think, he said firmly. I know. Emily took a deep breath. For the first time since opening that letter, her fear started to fade. Jason could try to use the law to scare her, but he no longer held power over her heart. The following week, she met with a local attorney who agreed to represent her pro bono after hearing her story. This won't last long, the lawyer said. He's bluffing, but we'll make sure the court sees that. As she left the courthouse that day, Emily felt the wind brush her hair and the warmth of the sun on her face. Her heart was steady, her steps strong. She whispered to herself, "This is my life now. Not running, not hiding, not being afraid. My health, my values, my prosperity, all mine." Across town, Jason sat in a cheap diner, staring at his phone, scrolling through old photos of Emily, the woman he had mocked, betrayed, and underestimated. He didn't want to admit it, but something inside him twisted with regret. Lily sat across from him, silent. "You really think suing her will make you feel better?" she asked quietly. He glared at her. "You wouldn't understand." She looked away. "I understand more than you think. You lost her long before you left her." Jason said nothing. But deep down, for the first time, he knew she was right. By the time the court date arrived, it was late autumn in Madison. The leaves had turned red and gold, and the chill in the air carried that sharp scent of change. Emily walked up the courthouse steps in a navy blue coat that fit her perfectly, something she hadn't been able to say for most of her adult life. Ben was waiting for her at the entrance, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You ready?" he asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," she said, taking a deep breath. Inside, the courtroom was small and quiet, the kind of place where the echo of footsteps made your heart race faster. Jason sat on the other side, his lawyer whispering in his ear. Lily was there too, but she looked uncomfortable, like she'd rather vanish into the floor. Emily's lawyer, a kind woman named Rebecca, leaned close. "Don't let him rattle you. Just tell the truth. Truth doesn't need decoration. It stands on its own." When the judge called the case, Jason stood first, adjusting his tie. "Your Honor," he began, "my ex-wife has been spreading false statements about me that have damaged my reputation and caused me emotional distress." Emily sat still, her hands folded in her lap. Jason's voice trembled, not with sadness, but with pride wounded by consequence. Rebecca rose. "Your Honor, what Mr. Parker calls defamation is simply the truth. My client was abandoned by her husband, who later entered a relationship with her sister. She made no public statements beyond what is factual." Jason's lawyer tried to interject, but the judge raised his hand. "Mr. Parker, is it true you were married to Mrs. Parker and later began a relationship with her sister?" Jason hesitated. "Yes, but that's not the point. The point, the judge interrupted, is whether she lied." Jason's face reddened. "She humiliated me." Emily finally stood. Her voice was calm but strong. "You humiliated yourself, Jason. I didn't ruin your name. Your actions did. I just learned how to live with the truth you left behind." The judge studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Case dismissed." The words echoed through the room. Jason froze, disbelief spreading across his face. Rebecca smiled quietly and touched Emily's arm. "You did it." Emily exhaled deeply, tears forming in her eyes. It wasn't joy exactly. It was relief, like the weight of the past had finally lifted from her shoulders. As they stepped outside, the crisp air filled her lungs. Ben smiled proudly. "You fought with grace, Emily. That's real strength." She nodded. "It's strange. I thought I'd feel victorious, but mostly I just feel free." They walked to a nearby diner for lunch, the same kind of place where Jason used to take her years ago, except now she ordered salad and tea instead of pancakes and syrup. Not because she was denying herself, but because she cared about her health. A word that meant more than it ever had before. Across town, Jason sat in his car, staring at the courthouse steps. Lily sat beside him in silence. "You lost," she said softly. Jason turned to her. "You think she's happy now? You think she's better than me?" Lily sighed. "I think she found something you never had. Peace." He didn't respond. His pride was too heavy, his guilt too loud. Meanwhile, Emily and Ben talked for hours, their conversation flowing easily. He told her about his late wife, about how grief had made him quiet for years. Emily listened with compassion, realizing how much pain people carry behind calm faces. "You know," she said, stirring her tea, "I used to think money was everything, that having a nice house, a husband, all those things meant prosperity, but none of it means a thing if your values are empty." Ben smiled. "You're richer than you think, Emily. Wealth isn't what's in the bank, it's what's in your heart." Later that night, as she sat alone on her porch under a blanket, she looked at the stars over Madison and felt something she hadn't felt in years, peace that didn't depend on anyone else. She whispered into the night, "I'm not the woman he left. I'm the woman I was always meant to be." Inside her home, the notice of dismissal lay on the kitchen counter, beside a candle burning low. It was over. The fight, the pain, the humiliation, all of it. But Emily knew life wasn't finished teaching her. This victory wasn't an ending. It was a doorway, one that led toward something greater, a new chapter of prosperity, love, and quiet strength. And though Jason didn't know it yet, he had just set the stage for his own downfall, the kind that comes not from others, but from the choices that betray your own values. Winter came early that year in Madison. The air had that icy sharpness that made every breath sting, and the bakery smelled of cinnamon and hope. Emily had turned 35 that November, and instead of sadness about age or what she'd lost, she felt something new: gratitude. Her life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She had her health back, her confidence, and a quiet sense of prosperity that no amount of money could buy. She was living proof that real wealth was measured not in dollars, but in dignity. One snowy morning, as she shoveled the front steps of the bakery, Mrs. Harris came rushing out with her phone in hand. "Emily, you might want to see this," she said, holding up the screen. It was a local news headline. Former business owner Jason Parker faces lawsuit for fraud and tax evasion. Emily froze. "Fraud?" Mrs. Harris nodded. "Looks like he tried to use his company's money to cover some personal debts. Didn't end well. The IRS froze his accounts." Emily stood there in silence, watching the snow swirl around her boots. It was strange. She didn't feel joy. Not exactly, but she did feel something that almost felt like justice. Later that week, as if the universe wanted to prove a point, Lily showed up at the bakery. She looked exhausted, her makeup smudged, her hair unwashed. "Emily," she said softly, "can we talk?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. "Come on in." They sat by the window with coffee between them. Lily's hands trembled as she spoke. Jason's gone. The business is finished. We're broke. He's blaming me for everything. Said I ruined his life. Emily looked out the window at the snow-covered street. He said the same about me once. I know, Lily whispered. You have every reason to hate me, but I'm not here for sympathy. I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. Emily turned back to her, her voice calm. You hurt me, Lily. You betrayed your own sister. But you're still family. I won't pretend it didn't break me, but I won't carry it anymore either. Lily's eyes filled with tears. You've changed so much, Emily. You look happy, healthy. I don't know how you did it. Emily smiled softly. I stopped chasing people who didn't value me. I stopped trying to fix others and started fixing myself. My health came back, my peace followed, and the rest just found its way. Lily nodded slowly. I wish I'd seen what you had before I lost it. You still can, Emily said gently. Start with honesty, and stop letting men like Jason define your worth. The two sisters sat in silence for a long while, the snow falling quietly outside. For the first time since that terrible day 2 years ago, Emily felt no anger toward her, only clarity. A few days later, she heard that Jason had been arrested for falsifying financial records. His lawyer had withdrawn from the case, and most of his old friends had disappeared. Madison was a small town. Word traveled fast. Ben stopped by that evening with a smile. Looks like karma's finally clocked in, he said. Emily chuckled. It's strange, Ben. I thought I'd feel vindicated, but I just feel done, like I've finally closed the book. He nodded. You don't have to enjoy someone else's fall to appreciate your own rise. You've built a life on values that last: health, integrity, real prosperity. That's the kind of wealth no one can steal. Emily looked around her small but warm home. The plants on the windowsill, the scent of baked bread still lingering from earlier that day, the soft music playing in the background. She realized then that her life wasn't just rebuilt, it was reborn. And yet, life had one more twist waiting for her. A few weeks later, she received a letter from the county clerk's office. Jason had filed for bankruptcy and was trying to use her name as a character witness to appeal for leniency. Ben laughed when she showed him. You've got to be kidding. Emily sighed. The man sued me, humiliated me, and now he wants me to save him? She shook her head. No. This time, Jason Parker can face the consequences of his own choices. I already paid for his mistakes once, with my tears, my health, and my heart. Never again. That night, as she blew out the candle by her bedside, she whispered, Some debts aren't paid with money. They're paid with lessons. She turned off the light, and the soft snow outside her window shimmered under the glow of the street lamps, quiet, pure, and unbothered by the past. The world had turned, and for the first time in years, it was turning in her favor. By early spring of 2013, Madison was waking up again. Snow melting into rivers, trees sprouting green, and people shaking off the cold. Emily felt the same inside. After years of pain and rebuilding, her heart finally felt light. The bakery had become more than just a job. It was a place of laughter, warmth, and connection. People came not only for bread and pastries, but to talk to Emily, to hear her story, to find hope in her strength. One Saturday morning, as she wiped flour off her apron, a teenage girl named Mia approached the counter. Are you the woman who lost 120 pounds? She asked shyly. Emily smiled. That's me. My mom listens to your story online, Mia said. She says you make her believe she can change too. Emily felt her chest tighten with emotion. Tell your mom she already has the strength she needs. It's not about pounds or diets. It's about believing your life is worth fighting for. As Mia left, Mrs. Harris whispered, "You've become this town's little miracle, Emily." Emily laughed softly. "No miracle, just hard lessons and second chances." That afternoon, she sat outside on the bakery steps, the sunlight soft on her face. Ben joined her, holding 2 cups of tea. "You've built quite the life," he said. "If that isn't prosperity, I don't know what is." She looked out at the street, where children played and cars rolled by. "You know, Ben," she said, "I used to think prosperity meant money. Big house, fancy clothes, approval from others. But now, to me, it's peace, health, and being surrounded by people who actually value me." He nodded. "That's real wealth. Most people chase money until they realize it can't buy peace." She smiled. "Exactly. The wealth I've got now can't fit in a bank account." They sat quietly for a moment, comfortable in the kind of silence that doesn't need filling. But peace, as Emily had learned, is something you have to protect. That evening, she got a call from a number she didn't recognize. When she answered, the voice on the other end was shaky and tired. "Emily, it's Jason." Her pulse quickened, but her voice stayed calm. "What do you want?" "I'm in a bad place," he said. "They froze my accounts. I've got nothing. Lily left. I don't even have a place to stay." Emily closed her eyes, breathing slowly. "Jason, I told you before, I'm not the woman you left behind. You made your choices." "I know," he said quickly. "I was wrong. I ruined everything. You were the only one who ever truly cared about me. Please, Emily, can I just crash at your place for a few nights? I'll figure it out after." She stood in silence for a moment, her hand trembling slightly. She remembered the nights she cried because of him. The years she spent rebuilding her health, her self-worth, her peace. Finally, she said, "No, Jason. I can't do that." He sounded desperate. "Come on, Emily. You've got money now, a good job. You can help me out." Her voice softened, but stayed firm. "You still don't get it. It was never about money. It was about values. You used people to fill a hole in yourself that only honesty and humility could fix. Until you face that, no one can save you." He was silent. She could hear his shallow breathing on the other end of the line. "Goodbye, Jason," she said quietly, and hung up. For a long time, she stood there, her heart pounding. But then something unexpected happened. Relief washed over her. She hadn't chosen revenge. She had chosen herself. The next morning, she went for her usual jog by Lake Mendota. The air was cool and clean, and the sun sparkled on the water. Every step felt like a declaration of freedom, one she had earned pound by pound, tear by tear. When she got home, she found a small card slipped under her door. It was from Lily. "Thank you for forgiving me, Emily. I started therapy, and I'm trying to rebuild. You were right. Health and peace are worth more than anything. I hope someday we can start again as sisters." Emily smiled as she read it. Maybe people really could change, if they were willing to do the work. That evening, Ben came by with dinner. They sat together, candles flickering between them. "You know," he said, "you're the strongest woman I've ever met." Emily laughed. "I'm not strong, Ben. I'm just tired of breaking." He reached across the table, his voice gentle. "You turned pain into power. That's strength." She looked at him for a long moment and smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe I just learned that peace is the most expensive form of wealth. You've got to lose everything first to know what really matters." Ben raised his glass. "To real wealth." Emily clinked hers against his. "And to health, prosperity, and never letting pain define us again." Outside, the city lights shimmered over the frozen lake, and for the first time, Emily realized she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living, free, prosperous, and finally, whole. The summer of 2013 rolled into Madison with warm winds and endless blue skies. The lake shimmered under the sunlight, and the town buzzed with the easy rhythm of small-town life. Emily Parker had found peace, not the kind that hides from the world, but the kind that stands tall within it. She'd bought a small house near the bakery with the money she'd saved over 2 years. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. The walls were painted soft yellow, the garden full of herbs and flowers she tended on quiet mornings before work. Each corner of that little home felt like proof that her life had come back to her, slow, honest, and full of purpose. One afternoon, she stood by the window, sipping her coffee, watching kids ride bikes past the fence. Ben walked in from the yard, carrying a basket of fresh tomatoes. "The garden's looking good," he said with a grin. "You've got the touch." Emily smiled. "It's amazing what you can grow when you stop pouring all your energy into people who drain you." He nodded. "That's wisdom right there." She laughed. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just common sense I ignored for too long." Life had become simple, steady, and that was all she'd ever wanted. But that peace was tested again one Sunday morning when she saw a figure standing outside the bakery window. Jason. He looked nothing like the man she once knew. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes tired, and his shoulders hunched like someone carrying the weight of regret. When he walked in, the bell above the door rang softly. Emily stood behind the counter, composed. "Jason," she said. He gave a weak smile. "You look incredible, Emily. Healthier than ever." "Thank you," she replied simply. He hesitated before speaking again. "I wanted to apologize for everything, for what I did to you, to Lily, for how blind I was. I thought I had wealth, a nice car, some money in the bank, attention, but I lost it all, and I finally realized how poor I really was." Emily watched him carefully. "Jason, I hope you're not here for pity or money, because that part of our story is over." He shook his head. "No, I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and to tell you that you were right. Real prosperity isn't money or looks. It's peace, it's health, it's having values. I didn't have any of that until I lost you." For a long moment, the bakery was silent except for the hum of the fridge and the faint clinking of dishes in the back. Finally, Emily said, "I forgive you, Jason. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Carrying hate is too heavy. I've already carried enough weight in my life, over 300 pounds of it, to be exact." He laughed quietly, tears in his eyes. "You always did have a sharp tongue." She smiled faintly. "It's sharper now that I'm not afraid to use it." Jason took a deep breath. "I'm leaving Wisconsin, starting over somewhere new. I don't know where yet, but I had to see you before I went." "Then I wish you well," she said sincerely. "Just remember, you can rebuild money, but rebuilding values takes more than effort. It takes honesty." He nodded slowly, and for the first time, she saw humility in his eyes. When he left, Emily felt a quiet closure settle in her chest. No revenge, no bitterness, just understanding. That evening, as the sun dipped low over Lake Mendota, Emily and Ben walked by the water. The air was golden, warm, still. "You okay?" he asked. "I am," she said softly. "For years I thought my story was about pain, about being broken. But it's not. It's about growth, about choosing myself, about realizing that true wealth isn't in the things we lose, but in the peace we gain when we stop needing approval." Ben smiled. "You know, Em, you should write that down somewhere. It's powerful." She shook her head. "I don't need to. I live it." They stopped by the edge of the lake, watching the sunlight ripple across the water. Emily took a deep breath, feeling every inch of her journey settle into place. The humiliation, the heartbreak, the transformation, and now, the redemption. "I used to pray for a new life," she said quietly, "but I didn't realize I had to lose everything to find it." Ben slipped his hand gently into hers. "And you found more than a new life. You found yourself." She smiled at him. "Yeah, and I found peace, health, and prosperity, the kind that doesn't depend on anyone else." The sky deepened into orange, then purple, then soft blue. The lake glowed like glass. And in that quiet moment, Emily Parker, the woman once abandoned, mocked, and broken, stood taller than she ever had before. Her story wasn't about revenge, it was about rising. And as the evening breeze brushed her skin, she whispered to herself, "This is my wealth, my life, my freedom." She turned toward Ben and smiled. "Come on, let's go home." And together, they walked back toward the lights of Madison, hand in hand, hearts at peace, lives finally aligned with truth. Because in the end, Emily didn't just lose 120 pounds, she lost everything that weighed her down, and gained everything that truly mattered.